Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Christians in Nigeria joined their counterparts across the world to commemorate Easter. Police in Nasarawa State arrest one inmate who escaped during last year's attack on Kuje Correctional Center in Abuja. Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board JAMB announces April 25th for commencement of 2023 UTME. On the foreign scene, at least 5 people injured following collapse of a 4-story residential building in Marseille. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Okpayamuni. Christians in Nigeria and around the world today commemorated Easter, the annual celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The celebrations represent the culmination of the Holy Week, which starts with the observance of Palm Sunday to mark the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. Millions of Nigerians went to churches today for special services, prayers, and thanksgiving to mark Easter. Earlier, President Muhammadu Buhari, governors, and influential Nigerians highlighted the importance of the season in their individual Easter messages, calling for unity and prayers for Nigeria. At the heart of Easter, the president noted is a triumph of light over darkness. Recognizing that Easter is about renewed hope and glorious future, Buhari urged all Nigerians to continue to be confident and believe strongly in the country for better seasons ahead. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of Catholics gathered in St. Peter's Square today to hear Pope Francis give the Easter message and a traditional blessing. Francis has returned to his papal duties after a recent stay in the hospital following a bout of bronchitis. Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke has felicitated with Christians on the celebration of Easter, charging them to use the occasion to reflect on the very essence of the divine sacrifice by Jesus Christ. Governor Adeleke, who noted that Easter impressed on humanity the unquantifiable power of love, tasked Christian faithful to let the valuable lessons of Jesus' sacrifice reflect on them all the time. He urged Christians to hold the message of love and compassion, which are the basis of the Easter celebration. Governor Adeleke reiterated his commitment to the welfare of the people of the state, assuring civil servants in Osun State of fulfilling promises made to them on improving their welfare conditions. He said his administration will ensure the cash backing of promotions done by his predecessor, Boyega Oyetola, assuring that the leadership of a public service is working hard to conclude the competition across the ministries, departments, and agencies. In the meantime, Bishop of Osogbo Catholic Diocese, Most Reverend John Oyejola, has asked Christians to be faithful as they celebrate Easter. While speaking in an interview with Western Spring Television News, he described the period as one that should be filled with love and sacrifice. Most Reverend Oyejola called on Christians to live fully and imbibe the lessons of kindness and sacrifice.
Easter brought joy, happiness, and hope to humanity. When all hope were lost, it was then Jesus Christ came to reinstate hope for humanity. God created man from the beginning to be his friend, to interact with him and live with him. But because of man's freedom, wrong choices were made, and then they committed sin. Number one, for us Catholic, Easter is the last beginning of the journey. You start from Holy Thursday, when Jesus instituted the priesthood, those who will be leading people to God regularly. He instituted the Holy Eucharist, the presence of himself under the appearance of bread and wine, which will be energy for humanity on the journey, is food for the journey back to God. And because Jesus suffered and died on Good Friday, resurrected on Sunday, so we look at that as a package What is God saying to us? What is the goal of our creation from beginning? He wants us back to him. So the goal is that everybody should be back to God, to try to live the life of innocence that God created us to be from beginning. Loving God, loving our neighbor, and serving them. That's all. Like I said, Holy Thursday, Jesus washed the feet of his apostles, telling us that service to humanity brings meaning to life. So ask yourself, what is the meaning of life if you possess everything? But you have to look at how does your life impact on other people positively. That is then you are saying that you are making meaning. So people, anybody believing in Christ, it's good to eat and drink. You can do that at any given time. But you have to ask questions. Why am I eating and drinking at this particular timing?
In other news, the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and Center for Journalism Innovation and Development, CJID, have filed a lawsuit against President Muhammadu Buhari over the 5 million naira fine imposed on Channels Television. The National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, and Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, joined in the suit. Last week, the embassy fined Channels Television over an interview with vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Dati Baba Ahmed, saying the broadcast violated some sections of its code. Mr. Dati had alleged that Bola Tinubu did not meet the constitutional requirements to be sworn in as Nigeria's president. In the suit filed before the Federal High Court in Lagos, the plaintiffs are asking the court to determine whether the NBC code used to impose the penalty and threat of iron sanctions is not inconsistent and incompatible with access to information and media freedom. The petitioners also prayed the court to declare the fine arbitrary, illegal, and unconstitutional. SERAP and CJID said the media has a task of distributing all varieties of information and opinion on matters of general interest and public interest. To security, police authorities in Nasarawa State have arrested one inmate that escaped during last year's attack on the Kuje Correctional Center in Abuja. Police Public Relations Officer Rahman Nansel disclosed this in a statement today, identifying the escapee inmate as 24-year-old Salisu Buhari, a native of Nasarawa State. Also arrested alongside Buhari during a sting operation in Nasarawa local government area of the state is 27-year-old Zubairu Ali. The police spokesman stated that both suspects were nabbed last Thursday for motorcycle theft. He said the Commissioner of Police, Miyaki Baba, has ordered the transfer of the case to the State Criminal Investigation Department, Lafia, for an exhaustive investigation. The Bauchi State Police Command has arrested 7 suspected thugs from the adults in Magaji quarters. In a statement today, Police Public Relations Officer in the state, Ahmed Mohamed Wakil, said the suspects, whose age brackets were 17 to 25 years, were apprehended with some dangerous weapons and alcoholic beverages. The police said the arrest followed credible intelligence as well as collaboration with the quasi-security outfit in the northeastern state. Reacting to the arrest, the Commissioner of Police, Aminu Al-Zan, urged parents and guardians to get acquainted with the activities of their children. He stated that the suspects will be charged to court for prosecution upon the conclusion of an investigation by the Bauchi State Police Command. A 34-year-old South American man from Suriname, Jada Lorenzo Avi Albert, has been arrested with almost 10 kilograms of cocaine at the Port Harcourt International Airport, Rivers State. Spokesperson for the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Femi Babafemi, revealed that the suspect brought into Nigeria 117 parcels of cocaine concealed in extra-large latex condoms factory-packed inside bottles of body spray. The suspect claimed he departed his country, Suriname, on board Qatar Airways flight in search of his long-lost Nigerian father, whom he called Omini. In the same vein, NDLA officers at Tinkan Seaport in Lagos have intercepted 110 parcels of Colorado, a strain of cannabis weighing 55 kilograms, hidden in a container from Toronto via Montreal, Canada. Similarly, 2 suspects, Abubakar Abdullahi and Stanley Tobias, were arrested on Friday, 7th April, with 108,000 tablets of tramadol at Oyinbo Motor Park in Lagos mainland.
Yes, lift it up so that you cut from the top.
You didn't disturb it.
Cut it open clearly so that dropping the thing.
Is this?
With your umbrella.
Elsewhere, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Health, Ibrahim Oloriegbe, has faulted the bill seeking to mandate medical and dental practitioners to practice for 5 years before relocating abroad. Senator Oloriegbe said the bill violates the right to freedom of movement enshrined in the 1999 Constitution as amended. On Thursday, the bill seeking to amend the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act 2004 in a bid to address the brain drain in the Nigerian health sector passed second reading at the House of Representatives. The bill, sponsored by Ganiu Johnson, an All Progressives Congress APC lawmaker from Lagos, proposed to mandate Nigerian-trained medical and dental practitioners to practice for a minimum of 5 years in the country before being granted a full license. But Senator Oloriegbe, in a statement, said the bill is not enough as a strategy to address brain drain in Nigeria's health sector, adding that factors responsible for brain drain are multifaceted. The medical doctor said the sponsor of the bill does not understand facts related to granting of practicing license in the health sector. The senator added that the factors making skilled health workers migrate out of Nigeria must be resolved instead of proposing a bill. A former judge of the International Court of Justice, Hague, Netherlands, Prince Bola Ajibola, has died. Ajibola, who was also a former Attorney General of Nigeria, died at 89. It was gathered that the respected legal icon, who founded Crescent University, Abeokuta, died at midnight after a long-time illness as a result of old age. The eldest son of the late jurist, Segun Ajibola, announced his demise in a statement today. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has condoled with the family of Bola Ajibola over the death of a former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. In a statement by Special Advisor to the President, Femi Adesina, President Buhari said Ajibola, an outstanding lawyer and eminent jurist, used his God-given knowledge, intellect, and talent to advocate for justice, fairness, and equity in all his undertakings within and outside Nigeria. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come, Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board JAMB announces April 25th for commencement of 2023 UTME. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
Ahmadu Bello, Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness and participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in northern Nigeria and the rallying point for politicians in the region before independence. History will not forget Ahmadu Bello for his charisma and political sagacity, which provided easy passage for his kinsmen to assume political and administrative positions in Nigeria's post-independence era. The distinguished elder statesman and Sardauna of Sokoto has his face on his country's 200 naira currency transparency as a mark of honor to one of the architects of Nigeria's independence. Western Spring Television identifies Ahmadu Bello as a watershed character in history. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world's most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white suprematists in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Western Spring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. Christians in Nigeria join their counterparts across the world to commemorate Easter. Police in Nasarawa State arrest one inmate who escaped during last year's attack on Kuje Correctional Center in Abuja. Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board JAMB announces April 25th for commencement of 2023 UTME. On the foreign scene, at least 5 people injured following collapse of a 4-story residential building in Marseille. The Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board JAMB has announced a new date for the commencement of a 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination UTME. The board disclosed this in a statement signed by its head of Public Affairs and Protocol, Dr. Fabian Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin said the UTME, which was earlier scheduled to commence on April 29th, would now start on April 25th, 2023. He also said the board would hold its rescheduled mock UTME on April 18th, 2023. He said the adjustment in the date of the UTME was to accommodate some other major and critical national assignments. In other news, Nigeria, like other sub-Saharan countries, is experiencing a steady growth in the rate of single mothers. This has resulted in a large number of single-parent mothers catering to families across the country. This report by Joseph Atewe looks at some of the issues leading to this phenomenon.
The increase of single mothers in Nigeria has become something to worry about, considering the ever-growing number, which doesn't seem to reduce anytime soon. Many experts believe that women no longer settle for a man solely for security and stability. This may have been a necessity in the past, but today, women want partnership, emotional support, meaningful conversations, and therefore may not be willing to settle for marriage just because they got pregnant. According to a 2020 cross-sectional survey, 4.2 million women aged 20 to 85 were bereaved, and no less than 3 million women were either divorced or separated from their husbands because the man could no longer provide the basic needs. We spoke to a host of single mothers in Osun State to know why they have decided to raise their kids alone without the help of their father. The response we got were alarming. While some who spoke to us behind the scene left because their husbands were physical on them, some left because their husbands became too controlling and in some cases was willing to get another wife. Barred by her husband's parents, 34-year-old Rukayatu Jo, who has over the years taken care of her 2 kids alone, told us that she went through hell in the hands of her ex-husband's parents, hence she had to leave.
I stayed in the marriage for 5 years. I got married to my ex-husband in 2015 and we were good. But I think our first issue started when we decided to live in a family house. So there was no freedom. And mind you, getting married to a man, marry a man that will stand by you always. Don't marry a mommy's boy. That is the genesis of our problem. And as time goes on, his family saw me as a threat to their son because I'm a very hardworking lady. I work a lot. I love money. So they saw me as a threat and they started one problem, one issue. So we grew from one issue to another. Till date, he didn't say he doesn't want me as a wife, but the father said, you are not good for my son. And that was what led to our separation.
Even though not all single mothers are financially precarious, the majority are and struggle every day to provide for their families. Rukayatu Jo further stated that aside being too demanding, the trauma that comes with being a single mother is not one she prays for her enemy.
Truth be told, I always say this whenever I go for any interview. I used to see most single ladies or single women saying, I can do without a man, I don't even need a man. It is a lie. We feel it. I personally, I do have that feeling because going out every day, walk myself out. At times, I would love to go home and share my experience with someone, not just a friend, but someone I love. But getting to that house, to yourself alone and the kids, most times I cry to my pillow. Yes, and then you feel, I didn't been. So there is no way you won't feel it as a single mother. I won't lie.
Having heard from the long list of single mothers we spoke to, a marriage counselor and a relationship expert, Mrs. Atinuke Olukemi, who has been in the business for decades, explained to us the reason behind the increase of single parenting in Nigeria.
The single mother syndrome is part of the problems we have in the society nowadays. Unlike in the olden days when I got married about 42 years ago, people were ready to stake their neck and work it with the husband until he makes it. But now, the opposite is the order of the day. They want a man who has already made it, who has a car, a job in the oil company, who is 6 feet tall with all the qualities you can see in a fine young man before they will say I do. And immediately they say I do, and the things they find in the house is no longer adequate, they just zoom off. And that is why you have single mothers and single fathers, because it is single parental.
Outlining ways single parenting can be reduced in the country, the marriage counselor believes both parties must put hands together to make things work and put religion aside.
It's not only contentment. The bad attitude you have mentioned, thank God you have said it is not to women alone, meant to, because if you look at domestic violence, you find out that some of it, women will be the one to be blamed, and other parts, the man will be to be blamed. And moreover, we have this syndrome of baby mama. They are not ready to just be responsible to anyone. They want an environment that is free of conflicts. They don't want to come home to come and make food for somebody on time. They don't want anybody to hamper them with having to go to clubs and what have you. So they decided to be single mothers by choosing to be a baby mama, not necessarily Mrs. Oluwapojuwumi.
The growing trend is becoming acceptable in the society, especially with many marriages crumbling up and deaths of the breadwinner. For some, they're not married but willfully have children for men they do not live with. We must understand that this ugly practice that is alien to African culture and tradition is gradually finding its way to stay. Everyone is obliged to make their own choices in life, but these choices often comes with consequences that most times constitute negative impact in the lives of the children, according to study. They say it takes two to tango, hence we expect that an end is put to this ugly trend of single parenting. Joseph Atewe, Western Spring Television.
Now to the crisis rocking the Labour Party, which yesterday forced its 36th state chairman and some members of the party's National Working Committee to pass a vote of confidence in the leadership of the party's national chairman, Julius Abure. Lamidi Apapa declared himself as the party's national chair in the wake of a fresh legal crisis rocking the party, whose flag bearer, Peter Obi, is challenging the outcome of the February 25th presidential poll. Addressing journalists, they said the reaction of Mr. Apapa and a few individuals is illegal and decisions taken are null and void. The 36th state chairman of the party called on Mr. Abure, whom they recognized as the national chairman of the party, to immediately call for a national executive committee meeting. Joining us on the news is the spokesperson for the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Yunusa Tanko. Thank you. All right, we have Mr. Tanko on the line right now. All right, we have some questions. It appears the Labour Party is faced with severe challenges at this time as a result of leadership crisis. How is the presidential candidate Peter Obi receiving these, and what is his campaign's reaction?
Well, for the last, but it's got as knowing food. The challenge is not only, it's actually outside, because the target phase of the super who have to get to him court case that you have against the election that took place of them. But be as it may, we are going to deal with both legally, politically, and thematically, so that our case at the court.
All right, to be clear, Mr. Yunusa Tanko, if there are aggrieved persons within your party and if there are legal challenges to the position of a chairman, how do you think this should be resolved?
Well, this can be resolved, first of all, if you have loyal to resolve within the internal mechanism of the party, i.e., Section 17 of the Constitution of the party says, before you can remove you must call it specifically for that purpose. And if there are issues within the party, it is also that will deal with those internally. The National Working Committee is there to all grievances that arises from each member of the party. And that we will all of this, we will be able to put our case with the level that are being where these are challenged. And that will be done quickly.
All right, there are other issues that have surfaced since the presidential election of February 25th. Mr. Peter Obi and his vice, Mr. Dati Baba Ahmed, have approached the courts to challenge the polls, but they are now being accused of incitement as a result of some of the comments. What is your reaction to all of this?
Interestingly, people try to forget these same people who are presidential incitement did what aiming that we did. I give you an example. Former chairman of Chief Oyo made it clear that the Parliament was said publicly. Nobody said attack them or label them as coupists or those who are trying to do an uncertainty government. The only thing that Vice President was that to have a who did not meet of the Constitution, i.e., if you are found wanting by the court or being convicted or a felon, you don't have to start. Or two, you did not present the to contest election, which at this point in the presidential candidate who was pronounced did not. And that is the reason Baba Ahmed made this announcement, and that is just not pronounced. So I wonder where that can become an incitement. We've had to sit down our principal guard trying to tell the ITEC to save the country with all of that on. People are already afraid of what case that we institutionalized in the court. So as far as we are concerned, there's no any form of incitement that was made. And this is also alluded to the fact that the present vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Oshibajo, also makes something similar. So I don't know where this incitement comes, but we all know what they are trying to play. They are trying to play the president of the Nigerian people to make them believe that the drum beaten by the obedient people, and that is not true, and it is wrong. It's malicious. In fact, they are the ones that start for treasonable felony because they actually ignore the tempo and the feelings of the Nigerian people when they floated a Muslim ticket against all odds. For them, our principal did not even make a statement against it.
All right. For further clarification, you said something earlier that you said the leadership crisis in the Labour Party is aimed at Mr. Peter Obi. How so? You said earlier that the leadership crisis in the Labour Party is actually aimed at Mr. Peter Obi. Can you explain further on that? How so?
I said the target is to which the base of the Labour Party. You know fully well that Peter Obi and the Labour Party are the plaintiff of the case that is in the court. And if you, within the base of the political party, you cast an aspersion of credibility on the party. And that is exactly what they are trying to do. Get the chairman arrested, all fake of forgery and other accusations. destabilize the parties. And who is going to go to the court? Which party is going to support the president? When you destroy the fabric of the party, you bring in some other, permit me to use the word charlatans to support for the party, who can eventually withdraw the case and say they're not part of it. This is a statement said to one Adam Erba, saying that he related the new leadership for the Labour Party, advising them that they should go give their congratulations to the president-elect and withdraw their case. I now understand an orchestrated plan, achieve their aim, and then they execute it. So it sounds so stupid for those who are trying to set up an idea to the Nigerian people, but we already know where they are heading, and we will challenge them accordingly.
All right. Recent Professor Wole Soyinka recently called up the candidate of the party to a debate, and you released a statement. But why do you think that the debate was ill-advised? The call was ill-advised.
Our revered professor, who has been one of us in good governance in Nigeria, so sad that we will end up in such an argument that is very, very unfounded. I remember with nostalgia. Don't forget, I was the field marshal of the State Nigeria Group. Our revered prof was part of the same Nigeria Group. We marched past the National Assembly. I was in the front leading. Tunde Bakare, that leader, Soyinka, Prof, and all well-meaning Nigerians were right behind me while I was leading that particular struggle. And the question is, at that time, what was the struggle for? The struggle for all to have good governance in Nigeria. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was about to be clear. The Nigerian people were supposed to have been kept where Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in the name of Jonathan, was kept in the loop of what is happening to the president who was sick. Clearly, the preservation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And Professor Wole Soyinka stood firm in defense of that particular constitution. So we wonder why, at this point, when the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was yet again being put to question, i.e., the Constitution says that you will have a candidate who must have presented the primary certificate election. That was that's ignored. The Constitution says that if you are a charged fellow anywhere in the world, you cannot stand election in Nigeria. That is the same trial the Constitution is being put in place. But here we are. The Nigerian people are being put into profiling and they are being segregated. Elections were being conducted. Ballot boxes and paper orchestrated by the principal so elect, saying that election is not won or served a la carte. You have to grab it, fill it, and run away with it. That particular statement was completely orchestrated on the 25th of February. And we expect our reverse to come out and caution this particular situation and condemn it in totality. But rather, what we saw with our revered professor laying credence and campaigning those who are fighting against unconstitutionality of the Federal Republic and then towing the line of those who want to murder our democracy. It's quite unfortunate. But what do you expect? To have our vice president to debate with the Reverend Professor? Oh no. Because the professor himself is not on the ballot paper. He didn't contest election. So what are we debating with him for? I think being that it was his principal, that at least we know that probably sent to the principal, who provided him with hookah, gas, and fridge when his house was not completed. So we know he's a legend, but we do not have he has a right to support whoever he wants to support, but not to question those who are fighting for their speech he, Abinisu, actually supports. So it's unfortunate the Vice President of the Labour Party would not engage with Wole Soyinka. Rather, the Vice President is ready, able and willing to challenge any of the other presidents who are running for election, i.e., put on place Bola Ahmed Tinubu as Vice President, he will take him on. Put in place Fatima, the Vice President candidate of the APC, who will take them on. Because those are the ones that are ballot, not Dr. Wole Soyinka.
All right, we really do appreciate you for joining us on the news at 7 on Western Spring Television.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I've been speaking with Mr. Yunus Tanko, spokesperson Labour Party PCC, on the crisis rocking the Labour Party, among other issues. All right, now move to the foreign scene. The collapse of a four-story presidential building in Marseille today left at least 5 people from surrounding structures injured, but the fire prevented rescue workers in the search for victims. The collapse of the building in the port city in southern France occurred around 12:40 a.m., damaging parts of the 2 surrounding buildings, according to Marseille Mayor Benoît Payan. So far, 5 people were injured from 2 residences next to the collapsed building in the central La Plaine district. The streets around the collapsed building were cordoned off and choked with dust, while firefighters could be seen attempting to work their way through the building debris. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has vowed to dismantle regional forces established by some states, warning that law enforcement measures will be taken against any destructive opposition. The initiative, first announced on Thursday, aims to integrate such forces, which were set up unilaterally by some states, into the Federal Army, regional police, or civilian life. Ethiopia's constitution allows its 11 states, drawn up along linguistic and cultural lines, to operate their own regional police forces. But over the last 15 years, some states have gradually established separate forces acting outside these constitutional constraints. In a statement published on his Twitter account today, Abiy said Ethiopia had encountered difficulties in relation to regional special forces, pointing out the existence of illegal checkpoints, smuggling and banditry. Following a visit to Ethiopia last month, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said Amhara forces had committed ethnic cleansing by forcibly transferring people out of western Tigray. In the Middle East, the Israeli military says it has launched artillery attacks on Syria after several rockets were fired from Syrian territory towards northern Israel, none of which caused damage or casualties. The cross-border exchanges earlier today came as Israel escalates violence on multiple fronts, including in Gaza, Lebanon, occupied East Jerusalem, and the occupied West Bank. Syrian defense officials claim that air defenses had responded to the strikes and successfully intercepted some of the missiles. It added that no casualties had been reported, with only material damage caused by the strikes. Still ahead, Tesla to build factory in Shanghai to make the Megapark energy storage product. We have more on these and other stories, other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
The name Adolf Hitler exudes a gale of bile from millions of people who were victims of his autocratic rule and love, from fanatical supporters of his imperial aggression. Born April 20, 1889, at a small Austrian town sandwiched between Austro-German frontier, Adolf Hitler spent most of his childhood in Linz, the capital of Upper Austria. As a very prominent stakeholder in the horrific events of conflicts in Europe, Adolf Hitler could simply go off as the sole mover of the Second World War. 40 million Jews were murdered in the gas chambers of various Nazi camps on the orders of Adolf Hitler. Thousands of Adolf Hitlers still live in Germany today, but the majority of them are elderly and were named before the end of the Second World War. As the name pales into vanishing rarity, 13 children, according to official records, were named Adolf Hitler between 2006 and 2013. Western Spring Television identifies Adolf Hitler as a major character in history. Born 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history.
Welcome back now to business. An Abuja-bound plane belonging to Air Peace was affected by a bird strike while landing yesterday. A bird strike is a collision between the bird and an aircraft which is in flight or on a takeoff or landing roll. According to a statement by the management of Air Peace, the aircraft, which took off from Asaba, Delta State capital, landed safely and passengers disembarked normally. The airline, while empathizing with customers whose flights were disrupted as a result of the incident, said an arrangement was made for another aircraft to operate on the rotation. Tesla will build a factory in Shanghai to make the Megapark energy storage product. Chinese state media outlet Xinhua reported that Elon Musk automaker will break ground on the plant in the third quarter and start production in the second quarter of 2024. Complementing a huge existing Shanghai plant making electric vehicles, the new factory will initially produce 10,000 Megapark units a year, equal to around 40 gigawatt hours of energy storage to be sold globally. With the new Shanghai plant, Tesla will take advantage of China's world-leading battery supply chain to ramp up output and lower costs of its Megapark battery units to meet rising demand of energy storage globally as the world shifts to use more renewable energy. Tesla generates most of its money from its electric car business, but Mr. Musk has committed to grow its solar energy and battery business to roughly the same size. Israel Adesanya today reclaimed the UFC middleweight title after coldly knocking Alex Pereira out in the main event of UFC 287. It took 2 rounds for Adesanya to bring down his opponent at the FTX Arena in Miami, Florida. This was the 4th fight between the pair, with Pereira beating Adesanya twice in kickboxing before following the Nigerian New Zealander into mixed martial arts, where he took Adesanya's UFC title in November. However, tables turned in the early hours of today as Adesanya from nowhere pulled the knockout blow, sending Pereira crashing on the floor.
I told you the hunter is now the hunted. I told him this before. Thank you. Thank you for all what you've done. Thank you for beating me, because beating me, he made me a better fighter, a better person. In this camp, I didn't around. If you know me, you know I like a vacation, but I didn't around. I stayed on the grind and I put myself through it. You be seeing me on Freestyle Bender on YouTube. I've been putting it. I don't put my highlights on the gram. I put the work. I get tired. So that way when I'm in here, I don't get tired.
And out of football, Roberto Firmino's late equalizer saw Arsenal's lead at the top of the Premier League cut to 6 points after an incident-packed encounter with Liverpool at Anfield. The Gunners were in cruise control with a 2-goal lead inside the first half as they went in search for their first win at Liverpool since 2012, but were left bitterly disappointed as they paid the price for losing their discipline in spells and considered that advantage. Gabriel Martinelli pounced on sloppy Liverpool defending to put Arsenal ahead after 8 minutes. Then Gabriel Jesus rose unmarked between Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson to add Omar at the cup end. Liverpool sparked into life after a flashpoint between Granit Xhaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold late in the first half. Mohamed Salah scoring at the far post just before the break to set up a thriller. In a dramatic second half, Salah missed a second successive penalty when he shot wide after Rob Holding fouled Diogo Jota, before Firmino rose at the far post to add on Alexander-Arnold's cross with 3 minutes left. American professional golfer Tiger Woods has pulled out of the Masters with a fitness issue. Competition organizers disclosed today that Tiger Woods has officially withdrawn from the Masters after completing 7 holes of his third round due to injury. In a statement on his Twitter account today, Woods said he aggravated a previous plantar fasciitis injury in his right foot, the same injury that caused the 5-time Masters champion to withdraw from the Hero World Challenge, an unofficial event he hosts in the Bahamas in February. The 47-year-old Woods was limping badly as he played many of the first 8 holes of a third round in the downpour yesterday. And that's all these are. But before we go, here's a recap of our major stories. Christians in Nigeria and around the world today commemorated Easter, the annual celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Police authorities in Nasarawa State have arrested 1 inmate who escaped during last year's attack on the Kuje Correctional Center in Abuja. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board (JAMB) has announced April 25, 2023, with the commencement of the 2023 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination (UTME). On the foreign scene, the collapse of a 4-story presidential building in Marseille today left at least 5 people from surrounding structures injured, but the fire prevented rescue workers in their search for victims. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Okpaya Muni. Thanks for watching.